The pregnancy test was positive, and I knew it wasn't mine. I stared at the pink lines through the bathroom keyhole, watching my wife Olivia hold the plastic stick with trembling hands. She didn't know I was there, didn't know I'd been tracking her period cycle for months, didn't know that we hadn't had closeness in over 2 months. The math was simple, brutal, and absolutely damning. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Jack Turner, and I'm a financial analyst. Numbers don't lie, people do. And my wife had been lying for a very long time. I backed away from the door silently, my heart hammering against my ribs like a caged animal. 22 years of marriage, 2 kids in college, a mortgage in Austin's most prestigious neighborhood, and now this. I walked to my home office, closed the door, and sat in my leather chair, staring at the family photos lining my desk. Every smile suddenly looked forced, every embrace hollow. The house felt different now, like the air itself had turned toxic. Our suburban paradise on Maple Ridge Drive, with its manicured lawns and gossip-hungry neighbors, had become a stage for the most elaborate deception of my life. Olivia had been playing the perfect wife while I played the fool. My phone buzzed, a text from my buddy Pete at work. "Drinks tonight? You look like you need it." Pete Rodriguez had been my closest friend since we started at Morrison Financial 5 years ago. He had an uncanny ability to read people, which made him excellent at client relations and even better at detecting bullshit. If he thought I looked stressed, I probably looked like hell. I texted back, "Rain check. Family stuff." Family stuff. What a joke. I didn't even know what family meant anymore. The bathroom door opened upstairs. Olivia's footsteps moved toward our bedroom, then back to the bathroom. I heard the toilet flush. Destroying evidence, probably, but I'd already seen enough. I opened my laptop and started researching private investigators in Austin. If Olivia thought she could pass off another man's child as mine, she had severely underestimated my capacity for strategic thinking. I'd spent my entire career analyzing complex financial situations, finding patterns others missed, exposing fraud. This was just another case of creative accounting. The First PI's website looked professional. David Chen, former police detective, specialized in marital investigations. I bookmarked his page and kept searching. I needed someone thorough, discreet, and completely ruthless. This wasn't going to be some amateur operation. "Jack?" Olivia's voice drifted down from upstairs. "Can you come here for a minute?" I closed the laptop and composed my face into what I hoped looked like normal husband expression. The performance of a lifetime was about to begin. I found her sitting on our bed, still in her yoga clothes, looking radiant, in that way pregnant women supposedly glow. Except the glow felt sinister now, like radiation from a toxic waste dump. "I have something to tell you," she said, patting the bed beside her. I sat down, maintaining careful distance. "What's up?" She took my hand, and I fought the urge to pull away. Her skin felt cold, clammy. "Jack, we're going to have a baby." I stared at her face, searching for any sign of guilt, any tell that might reveal her consciousness of the lie she was about to build our future on. Nothing. She was either a sociopath or an Oscar-worthy actress. "That's..." I paused, letting the moment stretch. "That's incredible news." She beamed and threw her arms around me. "I know we weren't trying, but sometimes the universe has other plans, right?" The universe. Right. The universe apparently involved her sleeping with someone else while I worked 60-hour weeks to maintain our lifestyle. "How far along?" I asked. The doctor said about 6 weeks. 6 weeks ago, I'd been in Chicago for a client presentation. Olivia had stayed home with what she claimed was food poisoning. I'd called to check on her that Thursday night, and she hadn't answered until almost midnight. "Sorry, honey, I was sleeping. This bug really knocked me out." Now I knew what kind of bug she'd been dealing with. We should celebrate, I said. Maybe invite some friends over this weekend. Oh, that sounds wonderful. I'll call Sarah and Mike, maybe Tom and Jennifer too. Sarah and Mike Henderson lived 3 houses down. Mike was a real estate developer who'd made a fortune during Austin's boom years. He drove a Tesla, wore expensive watches, and had the kind of confident swagger that seemed to attract women like flies to honey. Tom and Jennifer Walsh were newer friends, part of Olivia's yoga crowd. Jennifer ran a successful marketing agency, and Tom worked in tech. These were the people we'd built our social circle around, the couples who defined what success looked like in our neighborhood. They'd be the perfect audience for Olivia's announcement, and the perfect witnesses for what I was planning. I'll handle the food, I said. You just focus on taking care of yourself. She kissed my cheek, and I tasted betrayal. That night, after Olivia fell asleep, I went back to my office and called David Chen's number. It went to voicemail. Mr. Chen, this is Jack Turner. I need to discuss a confidential matter regarding my wife. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. I'll pay whatever your rates are. I hung up and opened a new browser window. Time to do some preliminary research of my own. Olivia's social media accounts painted the picture of a devoted wife and mother. Photos of us at charity events, family vacations, romantic dinners. But looking closer, I noticed something I'd missed before. In the past 3 months, there were several photos taken at places I'd never been, events I'd never attended. A wine tasting in downtown Austin, a gallery opening in the Arts District, a charity golf tournament at the country club. I'd been working late those nights, staying at the office until 9 or 10, sometimes later. Olivia had always been understanding, supportive of my career ambitions. Do what you need to do, honey. I'll find something to keep myself busy. She certainly had. I scrolled through her Instagram posts, studying faces in the background, looking for patterns. And there he was, in 3 different photos, always positioned just outside the main frame, but clearly visible if you knew to look. Tall, athletic build, salt and pepper hair, expensive clothes. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. I screenshot the photos and cropped them to focus on his face. Tomorrow, I'd show them to Pete. He knew everyone in Austin's business community. My phone rang. David Chen. Mr. Turner, I got your message. I'm sorry to call so late, but I wanted to reach you while you were likely to be alone. Can you talk? Yes. What kind of situation are we dealing with? I believe my wife is having an affair. She's pregnant, and I don't think the child is mine. How certain are you about the timeline? Very certain. We haven't been intimate in over 2 months, and she says she's 6 weeks pregnant. I see. Have you confronted her about this? No. She just told me about the pregnancy today. She has no idea I suspect anything. Good. The less she knows about your suspicions, the better. I can start surveillance immediately, but I'll need some basic information. Her daily routine, places she frequents, vehicle information. I gave him everything. Olivia's schedule, her gym, her favorite restaurants, her friends' addresses. It felt like betraying military secrets, except the enemy was sleeping in my bed. Mr. Turner, I have to ask this. What's your end game here? Are you looking for evidence for divorce proceedings, or are you hoping to reconcile? I thought about that for a long moment. I want the truth, all of it. And then I want justice. Justice can mean different things. Are we talking legal justice or personal justice? Both. I understand. I'll be in touch within 48 hours with preliminary findings. After I hung up, I sat in the darkness of my office, listening to the house settle around me. Upstairs, my wife slept peacefully, probably dreaming about her new life with her lover and their child. She had no idea that her perfect plan was about to become her worst nightmare. I was good at my job because I understood that every financial system had vulnerabilities, pressure points where the right amount of force could bring down the entire structure. Marriages were just another kind of system, and I was about to find every single weak point in ours. The pregnancy announcement party would be this Saturday. 5 days to gather intelligence, build my case, and prepare for war. David Chen called me Thursday morning while I was drinking coffee and watching Olivia get ready for her yoga class. "We need to meet," he said. "I have preliminary findings." "How preliminary?" "Preliminary enough that you're going to want to see these photos." We met at a coffee shop in downtown Austin, far from our neighborhood and the places Olivia frequented. Chen was exactly what I'd expected from a former cop turned private investigator, methodical, direct, and completely without sentiment. He slid a manila envelope across the table. "Your wife met with the same man 4 times in the past 3 days, twice for lunch, once at a hotel, and once at his residence." I opened the envelope. The photos were high resolution and damning. Olivia and her mystery man holding hands across a restaurant table. Olivia entering the Four Seasons downtown. Olivia leaving a mansion in Westlake Hills at 11 p.m. "Do you know who he is?" Chen asked. I studied the man's face. He looked to be in his mid-40s, well-dressed, confident, and suddenly I remembered where I'd seen him before. "Miles Bradford," I said. "He's a real estate developer. We met him at a charity auction last year." "Bradford Development Group," Chen confirmed, "worth about $50 million according to public records. Married to Susan Bradford for 18 years, 2 kids. So he's cheating on his wife with mine. It gets worse. I ran a background check. This isn't his first affair. He's been linked to at least 3 other married women in the past 5 years. Your wife fits his pattern perfectly." I felt something cold and sharp settle in my stomach. What pattern? Attractive wives of successful but busy professionals. He targets women who feel neglected, isolated. He's got a system. Charity events, wine tastings, art galleries, places where wealthy wives go to feel cultured and important. And the hotel? They've been meeting there every Tuesday for the past 2 months. Always the same room, always paid for with his credit card. Tuesdays. I worked late every Tuesday, staying at the office for our weekly strategy meetings that usually ran until 9 or 10. Olivia knew my schedule better than I did. "I need more," I said. "I need everything. Phone records, financial records, a complete timeline of their relationship. That's going to cost extra, and some of it might not be admissible in court. I don't care about admissible. I care about comprehensive." Chen nodded. "There's something else. Your wife made an appointment with an obstetrician for tomorrow morning, Dr. Sarah Martinez on West 6th Street. She didn't tell me about any appointment. She also made an appointment with a divorce attorney for next week. Rebecca Thompson specializes in high-asset divorces." The coffee in my mouth turned bitter. "She's planning to leave me. It looks like she's planning to leave you with Bradford's baby and take half your assets in the process." I stared at the photos, trying to process the magnitude of the deception. This wasn't just an affair. This was a calculated financial strategy, a hostile takeover of my life. "How long do you need for the complete investigation?" 2 weeks for everything you want. But Mr. Turner, I have to advise you to move carefully. If she's already consulting divorce attorneys, she's probably been moving assets, documenting your work schedule to establish neglect, building her case. Then I need to build mine faster. I paid Chen his retainer and drove back to work, my mind racing. At Morrison Financial, I had access to resources that most betrayed husbands could only dream of. Credit monitoring services, asset tracking software, forensic accounting tools. If Olivia wanted to play financial warfare, she'd picked the wrong opponent. Pete knocked on my office door around noon. "You look like someone ran over your dog. What's going on?" I closed my laptop and gestured for him to sit down. Pete and I had been through enough together that I trusted him completely. He'd covered for me during my divorce from my first wife, helped me through my father's death, and never once betrayed a confidence. "Olivia's having an affair," I said. "She's pregnant with the guy's kid, and she's planning to divorce me." Pete's face went through several expressions before settling on controlled anger. "Are you sure?" I showed him the photos. He studied them carefully, his jaw tightening. "Miles Bradford," he said. I know this guy. He tried to poach 2 of our clients last year. Real piece of work. Thinks he's God's gift to Austin society. What else do you know about him? He's leveraged to the hilt. All that wealth is built on debt and speculation. If the real estate market takes a downturn, he's screwed. Also, his wife comes from old Austin money. If she divorces him, he loses his social connections and probably half his business contacts. An idea began forming in my mind. How hard would it be to short his company's stock? Bradford Development isn't publicly traded, but most of his projects are financed through partnerships with public companies. Why? Because I'm going to destroy him. Pete leaned back in his chair. Jack, I understand you're angry, but you need to think strategically. Going after Bradford might feel good, but it won't solve your real problem. My real problem is that my wife thinks she can humiliate me and get away with it. She's about to find out how wrong she is. What about the party this weekend? I'd forgotten about the pregnancy announcement party. The irony was perfect. The party is still happening. In fact, I'm going to make sure it's memorable. That afternoon, I made a series of phone calls. First, to a DNA testing company that offered discreet paternity services. Second, to Rebecca Thompson's law office, where I made an appointment for the day after Olivia's. Third, to my own attorney, Marcus Webb, who specialized in asset protection for high-net-worth individuals. Marcus, I need to discuss some preventive measures, I said when he answered. What kind of preventive measures? The kind that protect me from a wife who's planning to take half my assets and disappear with her lover. Come in tomorrow morning. Bring all your financial statements, property deeds, and any prenuptial agreements. We don't have a prenup. Then bring everything else, and prepare for an expensive education in Texas divorce law. That evening, I watched Olivia prepare dinner with new eyes. Every smile seemed calculated. Every casual question about my day felt like intelligence gathering. She moved around our kitchen like an actress playing a role, and I realized she probably had been for months. How was work today? She asked, setting plates on our dining room table. Busy. We're working on a new acquisition that could be huge for the company. That's wonderful. Will it mean more travel? There it was. She wanted to know my schedule, probably so she could plan more rendezvous with Bradford. Probably. Why? Oh, just thinking about the baby. I want to make sure we spend as much time together as possible before things get crazy. The baby, Bradford's baby, the centerpiece of her deception. Speaking of the baby, I said, shouldn't you see a doctor soon? Get a proper prenatal checkup? She paused, fork halfway to her mouth. I already made an appointment. Tomorrow morning, actually. I'll come with you. Oh, that's sweet, but you don't need to miss work. It's just a routine appointment. I want to be there. This is our first child together in 20 years. I want to be involved in everything. The lie came easily. We'd had 2 children together, both now in college. But I wanted to see how she'd react to the pressure of having me present during her deception. Of course, she said, but I caught the flicker of panic in her eyes. I'll call and make sure they can accommodate both of us. Perfect. What time is the appointment? 10:30. I made a mental note to call Chen and have him photograph us entering and leaving the doctor's office together. If Olivia was building a case that I was an absent, neglectful husband, I was going to document my sudden transformation into the world's most attentive father-to-be. After dinner, while Olivia took a bath, I went to my office and opened my laptop. Time to do some research on Miles Bradford's business empire. Bradford Development Group had dozens of ongoing projects throughout Austin and the surrounding areas. Shopping centers, apartment complexes, luxury housing developments. All of them financed through a complex web of partnerships, loans, and investment groups. I started making a list of his financial partners, cross-referencing them with Morrison Financial's client database. 3 matches. 3 companies that we provided investment advice for, companies that had significant exposure to Bradford's projects. if those companies suddenly became concerned about Bradford's personal stability, his reputation, his ability to manage complex projects while dealing with personal scandals. Well, that could create some interesting complications for his business operations. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Miles. The text was clearly meant for Olivia. Bradford had sent it to the wrong number, probably confused by similar contact entries in his phone. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Chen, then deleted it from my phone. But first, I memorized Bradford's number. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting. The next morning, I woke up early and made breakfast for Olivia. Pancakes, fresh fruit, orange juice, coffee, the works. I wanted her to feel loved and supported right up until the moment I destroyed her life. "This is so sweet," she said, sitting down at our kitchen island. "You didn't have to do all this." "I want to take care of you," I said, pouring myself coffee. "Both of you." She smiled, and for a moment I almost felt guilty about what I was planning. Then I remembered the photos of her with Bradford, and the guilt evaporated. Dr. Martinez's office was in a medical complex near downtown Austin. I held Olivia's hand as we walked in, playing the role of excited father-to-be. The receptionist smiled at us warmly. "Mr. and Mrs. Turner, Dr. Martinez will see you shortly." We sat in the waiting room, surrounded by other couples, most of them younger than us, all of them presumably carrying their husbands' children. I wondered if any of them were living the same lie as Olivia. "Jack Turner?" A nurse called our names. Dr. Martinez was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor. She shook both our hands and gestured for us to sit down in her office. "Congratulations on your pregnancy," she said to Olivia. "How are you feeling?" "Good. A little tired, but nothing too bad." "Any morning sickness?" "Some nausea in the mornings, but it's manageable." Dr. Martinez made notes on her chart. "Based on your last menstrual period, I'm estimating you're about 6 weeks pregnant. Does that sound right?" "Yes, that's what I calculated too." I leaned forward. "Doctor, when would be the earliest we could do a paternity test?" Both women stared at me. Olivia's face went pale. "I'm sorry," Dr. Martinez said. "A paternity test. When's the earliest that can be done safely?" "Jack," Olivia said, her voice tight. "Why would we need a paternity test?" I turned to her with what I hoped looked like confusion. "For the insurance. My company's health plan requires genetic testing for coverage of high-risk pregnancies. I thought you knew that." It was a complete lie, but delivered with enough confidence that Dr. Martinez nodded thoughtfully. "There are non-invasive prenatal paternity tests that can be done as early as 8 weeks, she said. They use cell-free fetal DNA from the mother's blood sample. Perfect. Can we schedule that? Jack, Olivia said again. I don't think we need to worry about that right now. I want to make sure everything is covered by insurance, I said firmly. Money's going to be tight with a new baby. Dr. Martinez looked between us, clearly sensing tension, but not understanding its source. Why don't we focus on today's examination first, and then we can discuss additional testing? The ultrasound confirmed what we already knew. Olivia was pregnant, approximately 6 weeks along. I stared at the grainy image on the screen, knowing I was looking at Miles Bradford's child, and felt nothing but cold anger. Everything looks normal, Dr. Martinez said. The fetal heartbeat is strong. That's wonderful, I said, squeezing Olivia's hand. When can we schedule the paternity test? I'll have my staff call you with available appointments, Dr. Martinez said. It should be in about 2 weeks. As we left the office, Olivia was unusually quiet. I could feel her tension radiating like heat from a furnace. Why are you so insistent on the paternity test? She asked as we got in the car. I told you it's for the insurance. I've never heard of insurance requiring paternity tests. It's a new policy. Something about genetic liability and risk assessment. She didn't say anything else during the drive home, but I could see her mind working, trying to figure out if I suspected anything or if I was really just being thorough about insurance coverage. When we got home, she went upstairs to take a shower. I went to my office and called Chen. "How did it go?" he asked. "She's definitely pregnant, and she's definitely nervous about the paternity test. What do you have for me?" "More photos, and something interesting. Bradford's wife filed a missing persons report on him yesterday. Apparently, he didn't come home Wednesday night." "Where was he?" "According to hotel records, he was at the Four Seasons with your wife." I felt a surge of satisfaction. "His wife is getting suspicious." "More than suspicious. I have a contact in the police department. She told them she thinks he's having an affair and might be planning to leave her." "Perfect. What else?" "I've been monitoring your wife's phone records. She's been texting Bradford constantly, but she's also been in contact with someone else, a woman named Patricia Chen, who runs a high-end private investigation firm." "She hired a PI to investigate me?" "It looks like it. Patricia Chen specializes in asset discovery for divorce cases. She helps wives find hidden money, offshore accounts, that sort of thing." The scope of Olivia's deception was staggering. This wasn't a simple affair that had gotten out of hand. This was a coordinated campaign to extract as much money as possible from our marriage while minimizing her own losses. "David, I need you to find out everything you can about Patricia Chen's investigation. I want to know what she's looking for, what she's found, and what Olivia's legal strategy is going to be." "That's going to be expensive and possibly illegal." "I don't care about expensive, and I trust you to stay on the right side of legal." After I hung up, I sat in my office and tried to process the magnitude of what I was dealing with. Olivia wasn't just cheating on me. She was systematically dismantling our marriage, probably with Bradford's financial support and professional guidance. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. I opened my laptop and started researching Patricia Chen's firm. If I knew what kind of assets they were looking for, I could start moving things beyond their reach. Offshore accounts, trusts, business partnerships. I had options that Olivia probably didn't even know existed. My phone rang. "Pete. How did the doctor's appointment go?" "About as well as expected. She's definitely pregnant and she's definitely nervous about paternity testing." "And the party tomorrow?" "Still happening. In fact, I've decided to make it a bigger celebration. I'm inviting some additional guests." "Like who?" "Miles Bradford and his wife." Pete was quiet for a moment. "Jack, that's playing with fire." "Good. I want to watch them all burn." That evening, I called the Bradford's home number. Susan Bradford answered on the third ring. "Mrs. Bradford, this is Jack Turner. We met at the Children's Hospital charity auction last year." "Oh yes, I remember. How are you?" "I'm wonderful, thank you. My wife and I are having a small celebration tomorrow evening, and we'd love to have you and Miles join us. It's a pregnancy announcement party." There was a pause. "That sounds lovely, but I'm not sure Miles will be available. He's been working very long hours lately." "Of course. Well, the invitation is open if his schedule clears up. We're starting at 7. I gave her our address and hung up, knowing that she'd spend the rest of the evening wondering why her missing husband had been invited to a pregnancy announcement party by people they barely knew. The trap was set. Tomorrow night, all the players would be in the same room, and the truth would finally come to light. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of perfect weather that made Austin famous. Clear skies, comfortable temperature, a gentle breeze that carried the scent of barbecue and blooming flowers through our neighborhood. I'd spent the day preparing our house for what would either be the most awkward dinner party in suburban history or the most satisfying moment of my life. Probably both. Olivia had been nervous all day, checking her phone constantly, applying and reapplying makeup, changing clothes 3 times. She'd settled on a flowing dress that cleverly concealed her barely there pregnancy bump while still looking elegant enough for a celebration. "Are you sure we shouldn't wait a few more weeks before telling everyone?" she asked for the 5th time as she arranged flowers in our living room. "Why wait? We're happy, we're healthy, and we want to share our joy with our friends." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Of course. I'm just nervous, I guess. It feels so real once other people know. Real. That was one word for it. The first guests arrived at 7 sharp. Sarah and Mike Henderson from down the street, carrying a bottle of expensive champagne and wearing the kind of clothes that screamed, "We have money and want you to know it." "Jack! Olivia!" Sarah hugged us both enthusiastically. "We're so excited to hear your big news." Mike shook my hand with his trademark firm grip. "Congratulations, man. Olivia looks radiant." Tom and Jennifer Walsh arrived 15 minutes later, followed by Pete and his wife Maria. By 7:30, our living room was full of couples drinking wine and making small talk about property values, vacation plans, and the latest Austin restaurant openings. At 7:45, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I said, walking to the front door with my heart pounding. Susan Bradford stood on our doorstep, looking elegant but tired. She was alone. "Mrs. Bradford," I said, opening the door wide. "Thank you so much for coming. Please call me Susan, and thank you for inviting us. I'm afraid Miles couldn't make it. He's dealing with some business emergency." "Of course he is," I said, guiding her into the living room. "Let me introduce you to everyone." I watched Olivia's face when she saw Susan Bradford. For just a moment, her composure cracked, and I saw pure panic in her eyes. Then she recovered, walking over with a bright smile. "Susan, what a lovely surprise. I didn't know you were coming." "Jack invited us," Susan said. "Though I have to admit, I was a bit surprised by the invitation. We don't know each other very well." "Well, we're hoping to change that," I said smoothly. "Austin's a small town, especially in our social circles. We should all be friends." I introduced Susan to the other guests, noting how she seemed to relax as the conversation flowed around her. She was clearly a woman who was comfortable in social situations, probably from years of charity events and business dinners. At 8 o'clock, I called for everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I said, raising my wine glass. "Olivia and I have some exciting news to share." The room fell silent. Olivia stood beside me, her hand resting on her stomach, looking every inch the glowing, expectant mother. "We're going to have a baby," I announced. The room erupted in congratulations, hugs, and excited chatter, everyone except Susan Bradford, who was staring at Olivia with a strange expression. "How wonderful," Susan said quietly. "When are you due?" "Early next year," Olivia replied. "We're still getting used to the idea ourselves." "I'm sure you are," Susan said. "It must have been quite a surprise." There was something in her tone that made the conversation around us pause. I could feel the tension building like static electricity before a storm. "All the best surprises are unexpected," I said. "Speaking of surprises, where did you say Miles was tonight?" "A business emergency," Susan repeated, but her voice was strained. "What kind of business emergency happens on a Saturday night?" Pete asked innocently. Susan's composure finally cracked. "The kind that involves hotel rooms and other people's wives." The silence that followed was deafening. Olivia's face went white. "Susan," she said carefully, "I think there might be some misunderstanding." "Is there?" Susan turned to face her directly. "Because my husband has been disappearing for months, coming home smelling like perfume that isn't mine, and yesterday I found hotel receipts in his jacket pocket. Receipts for rooms he shared with someone named Olivia." The room was so quiet, I could hear the ice maker cycling in our kitchen. "I don't know what you're talking about," Olivia said, but her voice was shaking. "Don't you?" Susan opened her purse and pulled out a stack of photographs. "Because I hired a private investigator, and these pictures tell a very different story." She spread the photos across our coffee table like playing cards. Olivia and Miles at restaurants, entering hotels, kissing in parking lots. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Our guests stared at the photos in shocked silence. Then all eyes turned to me, waiting to see how I would react to the public destruction of my marriage. I looked at the photos, then at Olivia, then at Susan Bradford. "Well?" I said calmly. "This is awkward." Olivia started to cry. "Jack, I can explain." "Can you? Because I'm really curious to hear how you explain being pregnant with another man's child." The words hit the room like a physical blow. Sarah Henderson gasped. Mike stepped back as if he'd been slapped. Tom and Jennifer exchanged shocked glances. "How did you know?" Olivia whispered. "The same way Susan knew about Miles. I hired my own investigator." I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos Chen had taken. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice that we haven't had closeness in 2 months?" Olivia collapsed into a chair, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It just happened." "No," I said, my voice getting harder. "It didn't just happen. You planned this. You hired Patricia Chen to investigate my assets. You consulted with Rebecca Thompson about divorce strategy. You were going to pass off Bradford's child as mine and take half of everything I've worked for." The room was stunned into silence. Our friends, our neighbors, the people we'd shared dinners and holidays with, were witnessing the complete implosion of what they'd thought was a happy marriage. "Is that true?" Sarah asked Olivia. "Were you really planning to divorce Jack?" Olivia couldn't speak. She just sat there crying, her perfect facade finally shattered. Susan Bradford stood up slowly. "I think I should go." "Actually," I said, "I think you should stay, because Miles is on his way here." "What?" I held up my phone. I texted him from Olivia's phone an hour ago, told him there was an emergency and he needed to come immediately. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. "That would be him now," I said. I opened the door to find Miles Bradford looking frantic and disheveled. He pushed past me into the living room, then stopped when he saw his wife sitting with our guests, surrounded by photographs of his affair. "Susan," he said, "I can explain." "Can you?" she asked, her voice ice cold. "Can you explain why you're here? Can you explain whose baby that is?" Miles looked at Olivia, who was still crying, then at me, then back at his wife. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked small and powerless. "The baby is mine," he said quietly. And there it was, the confession that would change everything. Our guests started gathering their things, clearly uncomfortable with the domestic drama unfolding in our living room. Within 10 minutes, Pete and I were alone with the two cheating couples, watching 22 years of marriage and 18 years of another marriage disintegrate in real time. "So what happens now?" Miles asked. I smiled for the first time all evening. "Now you both get exactly what you deserve." The next morning, I woke up alone in my house for the first time in 22 years. Olivia had left with Miles around midnight, after I'd made it clear that she was no longer welcome in our home. Susan Bradford had driven herself home in Miles's Tesla, leaving him to figure out his own transportation. I made coffee and sat in my kitchen, surrounded by the debris of the previous night's party. Dirty glasses, crumpled napkins, and the photographs that had destroyed 2 marriages scattered across my dining room table. My phone rang. David Chen. "I saw the news," he said. "How are you holding up?" "What news?" "Check the Austin Chronicle's website." I opened my laptop and navigated to the local news site. The headline made me smile. "Local real estate mogul's marriage implodes at neighborhood party." The article was brief, but devastating. Someone at the party had apparently called a reporter friend, and the story of Miles Bradford's affair, his wife's public confrontation, and the revelation about Olivia's pregnancy had made it into the Sunday morning edition. "This is just the beginning," Chen said. "I've been monitoring social media all night. The story is spreading through Austin's social circles like wildfire." "Good. What about the financial investigation?" "That's why I'm calling. Patricia Chen's firm has been digging into your assets for 6 weeks. They've identified your investment accounts, your retirement funds, even the college funds for your kids. Olivia was planning to claim half of everything. Was planning? Past tense. I had a conversation with Rebecca Thompson's office this morning. Olivia's divorce attorney is no longer representing her. Why not? Because adultery changes everything in Texas divorce law. Olivia's not entitled to half your assets if she's proven to be at fault for the marriage's breakdown. I felt a surge of satisfaction. And the proof is overwhelming. More than overwhelming. I have hotel records, photographs, phone records, and now a public confession. She's not going to get a penny more than what she brought into the marriage. After I hung up with Chen, I called my attorney, Marcus Webb. Jack, I've been expecting your call. I assume you want to file for divorce immediately? Yes, but I want to do this strategically. I want to make sure Olivia and Bradford both pay the maximum price for what they've done. What did you have in mind? I want to file a civil suit against Bradford for alienation of affection. I want to go after his business assets, his reputation, everything. Texas doesn't recognize alienation of affection as a tort. Then we'll get creative. Fraud, conspiracy, intentional infliction of emotional distress. I don't care what we call it, I want him destroyed. I understand your anger, but you need to think about the practical implications. A prolonged legal battle is expensive and emotionally draining. Marcus, I'm a financial analyst. I know exactly how much this is going to cost, and I know exactly how much damage I can do to Bradford's empire. The math is in my favor. That afternoon, I drove to Pete's house. He and Maria lived in a similar neighborhood about 10 minutes away, in a house that was comfortable but not ostentatious. Pete believed in living below his means, a philosophy I was beginning to appreciate more deeply. "How are you doing?" Maria asked when she opened the door. She was a nurse at St. David's Hospital, practical and compassionate in equal measure. "I'm better than expected," I said honestly. "Angry, but better." Pete was in his backyard, grilling burgers and drinking beer. "Want to talk about it?" "I want to talk about Bradford's business vulnerabilities." He handed me a beer and sat down in a lawn chair. "I figured you might. I spent some time this morning researching his company's financial structure. And he's more leveraged than I thought. His current projects are financed through a consortium of investors, including 3 companies that Morrison Financial advises." "Which companies?" "Austin Capital Group, Lone Star Development Fund, and Texas Municipal Investment Trust." I knew all 3 companies well. Austin Capital Group was one of our biggest clients, and I'd personally managed their portfolio for the past 2 years. Lone Star Development Fund was newer, but they trusted our risk assessment completely. Texas Municipal Investment Trust was the most conservative of the 3, focused on stable, long-term returns. "What's Bradford's exposure if those investors get nervous?" "Total. He's got about $200 million in active projects, and if his financing gets pulled, he's looking at bankruptcy within 6 months." An idea began forming in my mind. What if those investors suddenly became concerned about Bradford's personal stability, his ability to manage complex projects while dealing with divorce proceedings, public scandals, and potential lawsuits? Pete stared at me. "Jack, you're talking about deliberately sabotaging his business relationships." "I'm talking about providing our clients with accurate risk assessments. Bradford's personal conduct absolutely affects his business viability." "That's a very fine line you're walking." "I've been walking fine lines my entire career. This is just another form of risk management." Monday morning, I was in my office at Morrison Financial by 7 a.m. I had 3 client meetings scheduled, and I intended to make the most of them. My first meeting was with David Park, the portfolio manager for Austin Capital Group. We'd worked together for years, and he trusted my judgment completely. "David, I need to discuss some concerns about one of your real estate investments." "Which one?" "Bradford Development Group. There have been some developments over the weekend that could affect their ability to complete their current projects." I showed him the newspaper article about Bradford's marital problems. along with a carefully prepared risk assessment that highlighted the potential impact of personal scandals on business operations. "This is concerning," David said, studying the documents. "How serious do you think this could get?" "Serious enough that I'd recommend reducing your exposure immediately." "What kind of timeline are we looking at?" "I'd move within the week. These situations tend to escalate quickly." My second meeting was with Rebecca Martinez from Lone Star Development Fund. The conversation followed a similar pattern, with the same result. By noon, I'd planted seeds of doubt about Bradford's stability with two of his major investors. My third meeting was with Thomas Chen from Texas Municipal Investment Trust. He was the most conservative of my clients and the most risk-averse. "Thomas, I have a fiduciary duty to inform you about a potential problem with one of your investments." I showed him the same materials I'd shown the others, emphasizing the conservative fund's need to avoid any hint of scandal or instability. "This is exactly the kind of situation we try to avoid," he said. "How quickly can we divest?" "I can have the paperwork ready by tomorrow." By Tuesday afternoon, Miles Bradford had lost financing for 3 major projects. By Wednesday, the story of his affair and its financial consequences was spreading through Austin's business community like a virus. My phone rang Thursday morning. Unknown number. "Jack Turner?" "Yes." "This is Miles Bradford. We need to talk." "I don't think we have anything to discuss." "I think we do. I'm losing everything because of what you're doing." "You lost everything because of what you did. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it." "Meet me for lunch. 1 hour. I'll explain everything." "There's nothing to explain, Miles. You slept with my wife, got her pregnant, and planned to destroy my marriage. The only thing left to discuss is how much you're going to pay me in damages." "Jack, please, I'm begging you." The desperation in his voice was music to my ears. 1 hour, Café Blue on South Lamar. I arrived at the restaurant to find Bradford already there, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 4 days. His expensive clothes were wrinkled, his hair was uncombed, and his hands were shaking as he drank coffee. "Thank you for coming," he said as I sat down. "You have 5 minutes. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. What I did was wrong, unforgivable. But destroying my business won't bring Olivia back. I don't want Olivia back. I want justice." "Justice? You've already gotten justice. My wife left me, my reputation is ruined, and now I'm losing my company. What more do you want?" I leaned across the table. "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You thought you could take whatever you wanted without paying a price. You were wrong. I'll pay you whatever you want. Money, property, anything. Just stop what you're doing." "Miles, you still don't get it. This isn't about money. This is about making sure that you and Olivia never forget the cost of betrayal." I stood up to leave, then turned back. "Oh, and Miles, the baby isn't yours either." His face went white. "What?" "I had Olivia followed for 2 months. She's been seeing a third man, a doctor at the fertility clinic where she's been getting treatments. The baby could be his, yours, or possibly even mine. She's been playing all of us." It was a lie, but delivered with enough conviction that Bradford believed it completely. I walked out of the restaurant, leaving him staring into his coffee cup, with the expression of a man who'd just realized he'd lost everything for nothing. 6 months later, Miles Bradford filed for bankruptcy. His wife divorced him and took half of what little remained of his assets. Olivia's pregnancy ended in a miscarriage at 12 weeks, and she moved back to her mother's house in Dallas. I kept our house, our investments, and our friends. Most importantly, I kept my dignity and my reputation as someone you don't want to cross. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in December. I walked out of the courthouse into bright winter sunshine, feeling lighter than I had in years. Pete was waiting for me in the parking lot. "How does it feel to be a free man?" he asked. "It feels like justice," I said. And it did.